I'm going to go ahead and get started because it's 6:30 and I want to be respectful of your time. But welcome everybody to our staff and buddy orientation for the Prism Project. I want to go through some stuff to get us ready for Saturday. I do have some paperwork that I do need for people to fill out. It's actually just one thing. And it is just starting right off with a waiver of liability, which basically means, if you, we don't intend to do you any harm and we are not liable for anything that might unintentionally happen or unforeseen. It also is a limited release to use images and video. And that's because we like to use images and video from the Prism Project. It's a great way to get people informed of what we do. It's a great way to promote the program. And when it comes to writing grants, a lot of times if people can actually see the faces and see what's happening, it tends to be a little more successful. So Laura, could you do me a favor and pass around and I have pens if anybody needs them. And before you do that, do you want to introduce yourself really quick? Oh, well, it was just real quick. Oh. What do you want me to say? Okay. I'm Laura. I'm a volunteer here. I'm Kelly's sister. And if we have a need for sign language interpretation, I'm a nationally certified sign language interpreter. So we're just going to do quick intros. I don't know if people want to hold the mic or they want me to hold the mic, but if you can just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Colby. I'm the creative director.
Hello, I'm Connor Buell. I'll be the theater director.
Hi, I'm Abby Petrie. I'll be the music director.
I'm Christina Wisman, and I'm a volunteer.
Christina, thank you.
I'm Reed. I don't really know what to say.
You're a volunteer?
Oh, I'm a volunteer.
And you volunteered before?
And I volunteered before.
I'm Bob Fisher, a psychologist and vaguely related to these people.
So Reed and Bob have volunteered with the Prism Project before when I ran it in New Orleans. So what we're going to do is very quickly go through some slides, kind of give you an idea of what we're about. You can go ahead and advance it, Doug. Okay. There we go. So the Prism Project operates in very large part based on donors and partnerships. And so we have received a grant from the Fishers Arts and Culture Commission. And we are partnering in a way with Switch Theater in that they have allowed us to use their space to run this program and the June Lee Music Academy. So if you haven't already done the onboarding, if your staff or the volunteer onboarding, please go ahead and do that before Saturday because they're graciously helping me by managing that paperwork sort of stuff. Is that sufficient, Doug? Okay. So I think you guys already know what we're about. We are a recreational program for individuals with disabilities. I think you've all heard this spiel, but in case you haven't, this program was created at Ball State University by my good friend and colleague, Ryan Horrigan. And he basically was at home receiving after-school activity flyers that didn't apply to his kids because he had 2 boys with autism. And so he decided to create something that would accommodate his kids, and the Prism Project was born. Creative arts is an awesome opportunity for individuals with disabilities in that it's so accessible. You can make music without having to talk. You can dance without having to walk. You can act or express emotion without being able to memorize lines or read lines. And so this is a recreational program, but as you've noticed, we have quite a few skilled people involved. This year we have 9 volunteers, and then we have a couple adult volunteers, and we have 11 performers registered, so that's exciting. So you've already all introduced yourself, so I don't really need to go through the staff structure, other than to say we haven't yet secured a dance director, so that makes me think that's probably not going to happen for this season. I do still think that there's ways we can incorporate dance. I think that we can see if any of the volunteers, for example, have any experience in that area. But having operated the Prism Project a lot, I kind of understand the kind of movements we use to help enhance if we don't end up with a dance director. So that's kind of where we're at. Oh, okay. That would be super awesome. And even if she couldn't make it like every single rehearsal, I can make that work. It would be wonderful to be able to have like an official dance component. Thanks. Because one of the aspects of the Prism Project that I think sets us apart is we serve individuals with disabilities, and we are creative arts, but we strive to make sure that it's a true creative arts experience and not something watered down or administered by people who know how to serve people with special needs but not creative arts. And we also have the component of people who know how to accommodate people with disabilities, even if they don't know creative arts. So what we do is we combine our forces like a superhero team and give them the full opportunity. So we do focus on positive support. Again, we're not a therapy program, although I would argue there's a therapeutic benefit. But we're all about positivity here. And for you volunteers and buddies, smiles. You know, when the kids arrive, when the performers arrive, we're all about high energy and smiles. The more excited you are, the more fun they are going to have. So it's okay to even be silly and goofy. That's what we're about. We always give praise, even if a performer needs prompting or a little bit more encouragement to engage. We're still going to reinforce the positive and focus on the positive. We don't force participation. If a performer, for whatever reason, is having difficulty engaging in that activity, or their energy level isn't there, or they're just not interested, then it's my job and some of the other support person's job to help figure out what that performer needs to get to where they need to be to get in that activity. So, for example, for creative directors, my direction to you is that when you're running an activity, if there's a performer that needs support, maybe they're getting frustrated, maybe they're getting distracting, that's our job to manage. I want you guys to keep the activity going, because what we find is if you can, it's easier to get that person back into the activity, and it also helps keep the group energy and excitement going. So my hope is that although you may notice it, I don't want you to feel like you have to need to stop everything to address it. If you do, then I haven't done my job. Oh, that's okay. Again, we do a lot of social reinforcers. Good job, way to go, let's do a dance, those kind of things. Maybe not high fives so much with COVID. But we don't really use tangible reinforcers because it's distracting and stickers end up everywhere. So I'm sure the theater wouldn't be happy about that. But we managed to make it fun and have a great time. So you can go to the next slide. So how do we know if we're doing the right thing? That we're working with people. There's really no right or wrong. I have found that my best approach is, instead of thinking about the disability when I approach somebody, thinking about I'm approaching a person. How can I connect with this person? How can we have an enjoyable experience together? And I think that if you look at it that way, you have a lot more success. But it means that it's important to be natural and genuine. Our performers will know if you're uncomfortable or not interested. So just be yourself. You're forming a relationship. We do have days when our energy's up, our enthusiasm's up. We have days when it's not so much, and our performers will as well. And we're going to roll with that and try to do our best to just kind of keep the fun going. And I prefer to model the appropriate behavior rather than, try to chase them into a behavior or cajole them into a behavior. I think that works a lot more successfully. In fact, I really encourage you to change your language and try to not do no's and you can't or stop. Instead, what I try to do is replace that with what they can do. So sometimes it seems a little silly. I know one time Reed was kind of laughing at me because we had a kid that was trying to climb up a bookshelf. And I would just take him and I would say, the shelves are for books and your shoes go on the floor, and put him back on the floor. And then he would try again. And we just kind of kept doing that until he got the point. But saying no or stop or those kind of things just makes that bookshelf a lot more appealing. So I just try to, and it's hard because I'm a parent, so saying no comes really easy. But try to work on what's the positive that I can get out of this. So if you have a performer that's refusing participation instead of saying you have to or whatever, you might kind of see where their attention is, or you might continue to kind of do the dance and say it's okay if you just want to sit and watch for a minute. Not everything that we're going to try is going to work right away. I think one of the great things about Prism Project is we accommodate all performers, and sometimes that means performers that have more challenging support needs. But my idea is that I don't have to know everything, but if we're doing our best to try, we're going to get there. So we just try to keep an eye on the performer, take cues from them on what's working, what's not working. And remember that progress kind of happens at its own rate with our cast members. Not everybody is going to master every task, and that's okay also. What I like to see is some level of improvement throughout the season, and that's really my goal. But we try to tailor that to the performers and what specifically they are interested in. So again, progress will happen at its own rate, and we're just comfortable with that. Okay. Next. Okay. So just for a quick introduction to serving people with special needs, do's and don'ts. Don't be offended by a lack of response or a lack of a typical response or unconventional behavior. Remember that we still greet people, we still make eye contact, we still reach out because that person's response isn't necessarily communicating what they received. Some of our folks understand a lot more with their receptive language than they can produce with their communication. So we go ahead, we continue that, and we get that sometimes you don't necessarily get a response. My son Noah is a wonderful guy, but sometimes there's a big delay between a greeting and his response. So people will say hi to him, and then they'll kind of wander off, and then he says hi. But it doesn't mean that they haven't registered, because later in the day, he'll talk to me about that person and how they talk to him. So what I say is, remember you're dealing with a human being. So if you don't get the response that you anticipated or a typical response, keep going. That's what we're here for. We do try to maintain good eye contact. Some of our performers, I know we have at least one that uses a wheelchair for mobility. So that person's buddy may choose to sit rather than stand over them during sessions. We try not to use really complicated language. So if you're teaching something, think about how you can break down that concept. So, for example, if our dance instructor was teaching a dance move rather than using the formal term, he or she might use words to describe the body movements that happen. We always identify ourselves. That's true for all of our performers, but if someone's sight impaired, it's important for you to say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so," so that they know who's talking to them at that time. Yeah, like Grandma. We always offer help. We don't assume that it's needed. You might have a performer that has capabilities in areas and then maybe certain pockets where they need support, but they don't need support in all areas. And so what we do is we consistently follow a schedule, and we're going to talk about the schedule in a minute, but we find that if we stick to a set schedule, the performers find that more comfortable. It's easier for them to get into the activities when they can anticipate what's going to happen. We try to be specific about what we're doing and when. Some of our performers like to have a visual schedule, and if so, I can make those. It's not a problem. We used to laminate them, and then the performer would have a whiteboard marker, and they could check off, and then we just wipe it clean for the next session. And that way I can actually customize it. We had one performer that really liked Elmo, so his was Elmo doing the different activities, and that's fine too. We reward appropriate behavior. We tend to try to not put a lot of energy into inappropriate behavior. Some of our kids do have, they're working on their social skills, and so they may say or do things that may come across in a way that's not intended. So we try to instead flip that to the more appropriate. I know we have one performer whose mom said that he can sometimes stare at people that look different or make comments that could insult someone. And so what we'll do instead is just redirect that behavior. We're not going to try to convince him, don't say that or don't do that. We want to focus on the positive. And we give everybody many, many opportunities for success. So, for example, in our online version last year, we had one young man who liked to talk a lot. And he liked to talk a lot off topic. And while we like participation, it was getting hard for the other students to participate. So what we did was, rather than interrupt him or criticize him or that sort of thing, we started off the session with everybody agreeing that we would take turns. And we also started off the session with everybody agreeing that we would raise our hand on Zoom, the little hand raise. And then we also would really praise him for waiting his turn. But the other thing that we did was I instructed the creative directors, when you're calling on people, try to call on him earlier in the rotation, because that way you're catching him in the appropriate behavior, not giving him a long time to get bored and interrupt, and we can really praise him. So rather than making him wait till the last person to speak, have him be the second person to speak. And then he really liked those emojis on Zoom. So we were just constantly flooding him with emojis for doing the right thing. So that's kind of the idea. And I'm not an ABA professional, but I like to kind of borrow from that field to, keep things in the positive and that sort of thing. And that will be kind of my job. And then Olivia, who's not here, the other behavioral support person's job. Any questions so far? Okay. So our goals, to hopefully get them to participate in all three areas of dance, music, and theater to whatever level, at the very least to taste it, to give it an introduction. Some kids are going to gravitate towards one thing over the other, and that's okay. We try to increase participation from the previous rehearsal in that specific area. We also try to make sure everybody performs in the final show. And so, hey, Reed, can you help me pass out a few things? Can you pass out both? Everybody gets one of each of these? Yeah. So, there's actually... No, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. So Reed's going to pass around 2 forms that we use at every rehearsal. You don't need to keep these because I'll use them on Saturday, but just so you can look and see what they look like. What we try to do are 2 things. One thing that we have is a form that the buddies fill out with the performers, and that's basically a form to send home. And the reason that we created that was because when I send my son to an activity like this, he can't come home and tell me what he did or what he enjoyed or how it went. So instead, what I do is create this so that parents have an idea of what we did during rehearsal and how it went and that sort of thing. So there should be one that says, today in dance today I did this. And what we do is we want to focus on the positive. So we'll talk about the activity, but think about one thing that performer liked. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something super complicated. It could be, hey, I liked the shaker, or I liked hopping up and down, or I liked laughing at the jokes, that sort of thing. But we try to keep it super positive, but we also try to keep it somewhat specific so parents know what's going on. For the creative directors, if you have a song that we want them to learn, we can find a link to that song, or we could even record it ourselves and send it home so that, if they're driving in the car, they can listen to it. Or if they're just sitting eating dinner, they can listen to it. Just having it in the background helps. Or if you have lines that they're learning, we can print those up and send them. Or if you have, if we had a dance or something like that, we can actually record the dance director doing the dance and then send them the link so the kids can watch it and practice it at home. The other sheet we have is a little bit more for our own personal data. That's something that buddies fill out after the performers have left. And it kind of helps me get an idea of individual participation each session. And again, our hope is to see the person engaging more, needing less supports, that sort of thing. And so those, I can kind of explain them on Saturday, but it's not something that you're supposed to really think long and hard about a lot. It shouldn't be complicated. It's just to give me a little bit of a glimpse. If I can't understand it, I can always ask you, hey, what did you mean by this? And then so one thing that we'll, I have another form. Laura, do you want to pass this one out? And again, you don't have to keep these because I'll reuse them. One thing that we'll do about mid-season is we'll have the buddies fill out this form that Laura is passing out. And this form is basically helping us get a better sense of what each performer likes to do and each performer is interested in doing. And the point of this is to help kind of narrow down the final show. And the reason that I created this was because we want to make sure that every kid has a moment to shine in the final show. Now, that doesn't mean that every kid is either going to come out and do a really complicated dance or sing a long song or do a super impressive monologue. One year, one of the groups that we went to, they had a kid that liked to eat chips and he liked wrestling. So his buddy, they pretended like it was a chip eating contest, but they did it wrestler style. So they dressed like wrestlers and they came out and his buddy trash talked him and they really hyped it up. And then they had a chip eating contest and he won. So we kind of try to do things like that. We had one performer that was terrified to be on stage, but he liked music. And I found an app where you can make music by drawing on the app. It's called Bubble something. I don't know if you've heard of it, Abby. Oh, it's an awesome app. But as you draw, you can pick different sounds. And as you draw your picture, it makes the music, but it records you while you're doing this. So what he did was he created this moving visual audio performance. And so we played it on the projector for the final show because he didn't want to be on stage. He came kind of to the side of the stage and waved hello. And we did have some images of him also. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. We want to make sure that somehow we incorporate different things. I know one young man who might participate really likes Dr. Seuss. He also has very limited physical ability and limited language ability. So what we might do is have some kids and him act out a Dr. Seuss story. So we want to make sure every kid has a moment in the show, not necessarily this, the show's only an hour long, so it's not major, but I want every parent to feel like there's a point where their kid is kind of the star, if that makes sense. You can go to the next slide. So I have the schedule up there. You should probably already know that by now, but it just kind of gives the days and times. And I can send this PowerPoint to everybody because there are some video links embedded in. This one has a link. We don't need to play it, but it's for the very first rehearsal one season so that you can kind of see that the first rehearsal is really kind of a mixer, get to know you. The volunteers start to gravitate towards certain performers, and we all kind of figure out that as we go. You can do the next slide. So what does a typical rehearsal look like? Volunteers and staff arrive between 9 and 9:15. Actually, you could get here as late as 9:30. I always try to get here at 9 or a little bit after because there's setting up involved. And I do have... I have a rolling speaker that's Bluetooth, so if we want music, we can play it through the speaker. I have a lot of handheld musical stuff, and then I also have the dance ribbons and scarves. So we have stuff to kind of bring in, and then I don't know, Doug, if you're doing this show on Saturday, are we going to be able to move the chairs, or do you need them to stay where they are? I think you mean for this show that's set up on stage? I think it says the show's at 2. Oh. Since you have a production set up to run an actual show Saturday afternoon? Okay. So what I envision is we'll have the chairs set up in a big circle because we want to try to social distance. I know we can't do that 100%, but what I'd like to do instead is limit how many people are connecting with each performer. So the buddy might stay close to the performer, but nobody else, knowing that we might not get all performers to stay in one spot, but we're going to try and do our best. So I thought if we cleared the chairs, we can make a big circle. And then what I've done is I got big poster board. I'm going to put the performer's name on it and prop it up on the chair, and that way I can say, go to your spot, and so it'll seem a little bit more fun and special than to keep telling them stay away from your friend, your friend or whatever. And so staff and volunteers do need to be here by 9:30 because the creative directors will, maybe not for Saturday, but generally we'll want to kind of inform them of what we're going to be doing that day. So if you're teaching a song, you might actually want to play it with the buddies and volunteers so that they can hear it and practice it before the performers arrive. And then so the performers arrive at 9:50, and I've told the parents no earlier than 9:50. And so we have like a 10-minute window where they arrive between 9:50 and 10 o'clock. And what I like to do is when they're coming in, I would like to have like a song playing, and it can be the same song. And what we often do is choose like a main song that we might be using in the show. If you don't already have one thought up, we can pick one. It's not a big deal. But what I like to do is have a buddy go greet the performer. The first day it'll be anybody, but over time it'll be that performer's buddy. And then at their chairs, they can just be doing kind of a slow movement, whatever, something that's like there's an activity for you to join into that's easy and relaxing. So you're not walking into a room that's just chaos, because I think that's easier for the performers. Usually we walk in a big circle and kind of do like a slow line dance thingy, but that probably wouldn't work right now. And so the performers arrive. We do 20-minute sessions with the different content areas. So 20 minutes for dance, 20 minutes for music, 20 minutes for theater. And we do a 5-minute break in between. That's a chance to get a drink of water or that sort of thing. I told the parents maybe bring water bottles, because I don't think we should have everybody drinking from the drinking fountain. Yes, that'll work. Oh, well, that would happen anyway. But we find that our performers get thirsty. You know, they're singing, they're talking, they're dancing. So, and then what we do is at 11:15, we gather together again. That's where we can do rehearse anything that's all group. And then the last 5 minutes, the performers are here. They sit down and fill out the take-home sheet with their buddy. And then their buddy takes them to their parents when their parents arrive to pick them up. And then afterwards, we do kind of a quick check-in, see if anybody has any comments, see if anybody has any questions, see if anybody has any concerns. And then clean up, and we need to be out of here by noon, which shouldn't be a huge problem, but that's what we need to do. As far as the location, is it possible to have the curtains closed on Saturday so that we don't be tempted to get up on stage and mess with the set? Okay. What I always do when I'm in a room is look and see what could possibly be something that would be interesting or attractive to somebody. So we need to kind of keep an eye on those sorts of things, or the doors if we have kids that might tend to escape if they're stressed or overloaded. And we want to leave the place the way we found it. So if the chairs are all set up like this, and we're allowed to clear them, we need to put them back the way they were set up. We don't, and we don't leave trash or anything like that. So, and we're out by noon. Any questions about the schedule? Now, Saturday will be a little bit different because we don't have those 20-minute defined sessions. I would say Saturday, what would work best, and I don't know if you guys talked about Saturday at all. Oh, okay. Did you come up with like a plan? Awesome. Yeah, no, that's perfect. And what I would suggest is each creative director kind of have like 3 or 4 activities in your head, so that when it's your turn, you kind of pull that out. Something that doesn't take a huge amount of time. 15-minute activity, that kind of thing. Because everybody's just kind of getting to know one another. And then when you're not leading the activity, if you want to join in on the other ones, engage with some of the individual performers, that would be helpful as well. Well, not in their chair, because that's not going to happen. But preferably near their chair, only because, I want to be as respectful of keeping people safe. But if we want to do activities where they move around, we can do that. We just want to kind of avoid activities that would have them all bunching up in one area, kind of thing. But yeah, if we want to do something physical, like even going around the chairs or spreading back and away from the chairs or engaging, we just don't want to get a lot of the performers close to one another. I think everybody else is pretty much, familiar with the protocol, the mask wearing, washing your hands, using the hand sanitizer, but the performers may struggle with that a little bit more. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, good. There's something that made me think of, but I can't. I'll think of it again. So, yeah. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And so this is, for buddies or for anyone. If you have any questions or concerns, it always is helpful to start off by talking to one of your buddies, maybe asking for support or advice. And then also one of the adult volunteers like Laura or Bob or Jennifer, who's not here. You can also report to the creative director. I would just say that not during an activity, so you don't want to interrupt somebody during an activity. And then there's Olivia, the behavioral specialist, or myself. That was my first job when I first started running the Prism Project, was the behavioral specialist, so I'm very comfortable doing that. And then you can contact me, and there's my phone number, or if you had a concern about how this was run or the space from the administrative, the checking in and that kind of thing, then it would be here. Now I was going to ask you, Doug, when performers come, I usually have a sign-in sheet, or should they just check in at the front? Okay. Yeah, no problem. That's perfect. Okay. So any questions so far? The biggest thing to remember is, every year is a bit of a leap of faith. We don't know who's these kids. Like, usually I know about 75% of them because we have such a high return rate. But because this is the first year we're running it in person here, we don't know who's going to arrive. We don't know what they're coming with in terms of their interest level, what they want to do, what they don't want to do, what their accommodation needs are. But we are going to roll with it, and we're going to roll with it and have a smile on our face. One of the things I always tell my buddies is when the rehearsal's over and you take that performer back to the parent, tell them something nice about what happened that day. We as parents always get a list of all the bad things that happened. Like, that's not what we're about. And maybe that kid struggled during that day, but we managed. We helped them. We got through it. That's that kid's day every day. And so the parent doesn't need us to point it out, like, fix this problem, because it's not a problem. It's a person. So we just try to keep everything positive and fun. And for the creative directors, we can do pretty much anything. If you have a kid that comes in that says they want to be a mermaid, then we're going to have a mermaid. We just kind of respond to who likes to do what. I know we have another performer who really likes to sing. So, maybe do a duet with Noah, who also really likes to sing. We like to try to find ways where the performers can kind of engage with one another. We have another one who likes to write ideas and shows and stories. So that might be something for like writing, let's come up with a scene and let's come up with some interesting story. At the end of the season, I do put together a program for the final show. And one of the things I have done that I found is kind of successful is that I write with the theater director. We write the acts, the different things that happen, and I try to put like a one sentence, like, here's what's happening on stage, and then I put the name of the performer or performers that are being highlighted during that act. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One is parents can kind of, I'm going to make sure I want to keep an eye out for my kid in Act 3. But the other thing is sometimes what's happening on stage doesn't translate the message as well to the audience, particularly if we have performers that are going to be moving around a lot and away from the mic a lot, or, that sort of thing. So it helps the audience get involved in the storyline and still pay attention to the performers and not be like, I had no idea what was going on there, kind of thing. So we can do that. And we can do, I don't know if you guys talked about this, we can do an actual story, like a 1 hour concept, One year we did 2 different camping groups. We wanted to do a show about friends. So we had 2 different groups that were camping on the same mountain, and they kept kind of noticing that there's somebody else on the mountain, and they were scared at first and not sure, and then eventually they became friends and realized that that was a fun person on the mountain. And another year we actually did Wizard of Oz, but we did it totally New Orleans. So we were going down the Mardi Gras Road, and we had like a chef instead of a tin man and things like that. But we've also done years where we've just done skits. Maybe one group came out and danced, another group came out and sang, another group came out and told jokes. It just depends on the kids and what we feel like we want to do. We really have the freedom to do whatever. We do want to have a show that's main theme is consistent with the Disability Awareness Month theme, which is Together We Achieve More. So something about togetherness would be awesome, because we are going to be on their calendar of events. So, and that calendar seems to be shrinking a little bit because they've canceled some of their programs. So, anyway, that's all I think I had to run through. Any questions, or anybody want to add anything? Okay, I think so. For Saturday, when the performers arrive, you're not going to be assigned a performer if you're a buddy volunteer. It's really what I like to do is have people intermingle, and then at the end of the session, if you like have a performer that you really clicked with, you could say, I think that it'd be great for me to buddy with Ryan or whoever. And I know one of our performers isn't going to make it to the first 2 or 3 sessions, but he was in the virtual season, and his name's Ryan. He's cute as a button. So I wouldn't be crazy about somebody missing 3 sessions, but Ryan, I know, is going to come on in with a lot of enthusiasm and get right into the activities. And so I think he would be great to, accommodate in that way. And also it kind of gives us just one fewer, performer at first. Laura? Yes. Yeah. If you want something to drink, you should bring some bottled water. In the past, I've brought coffee, and if the theater didn't mind, I can do that. But I've found that people today don't usually just drink coffee regular. They want a fancy coffee, because I would just go to Panera Bread and get a box of coffee. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good question, too. Casual, comfortable. We're moving around, so wear something that feels good. We don't dress up. We do have, I'm going to try to raise money to get T-shirts. So I will be asking for T-shirt sizes if I can confirm that I can do that. It looks better on stage if everybody's wearing matching T-shirts. And that's usually what we do. And then actually 7 Jeans, which is a company that makes jeans that's adapted for people with disabilities, donated a bunch of jeans to the Runway of Dreams at IU that Noah participated in. So they're willing to donate jeans for our performers, which would be super awesome because those jeans are really expensive. So if I can do that, I'm going to get their jean size. So the kids will all be wearing jeans and a shirt that will probably have the Prism Project logo on it. And the great thing about the theater, which you can't see right now because they have this awesome set, is that the whole back is black. So what I like to do is get a nice, really bright, fun, tie-dye maybe type shirt because it really pops off the black background. Oh, okay. So that's, I guess, what I'm remembering seeing. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's true. So many options. So any other questions? Laura? Just kidding. So you're done. But yeah, if we have a performer that has a behavior, particularly if we have someone that tries to escape when they get overwhelmed, those situations are rough because I don't want any of you to have to address that. So generally speaking, myself or Olivia will try to help that performer. We do have to prevent them from leaving the building. I mean, that's the way it is. And I usually do that by simply blocking the door personally with my body. But if we have a performer that might get, I've had kids that will try to kick. I've had kids that will spit. Again, let Olivia or I address that. I really don't want our volunteers to have to intervene in those circumstances. And then what I'll do is talk to the parents about what's the most successful strategy for helping in those situations. That's not really common, but it's possible. And so what happens is Olivia and I kind of float around during the rehearsal, and we are watching for stuff like that. So my hope is that you wouldn't be stuck in a situation that you felt overwhelmed, that we would see it and intervene. But if we don't, just get our attention and we'll step in and help. That's kind of the big ones. And then, of course, if there's other disability accommodations, if a child needs to go to the bathroom and needs assistance, Bob or I will help. I've just volunteered you, Bob. Well, you need a male to go in with a male. And preferably not alone. Preferably, like, maybe Reed go with you or something like that. But we're used to helping someone with toileting needs. So we have gloves and wipes and all that kind of stuff. And we'll talk to the parents. Usually parents will alert you if that's something that needs to be supported. And eat something before you come, because everybody gets really, it's a lot of energy and people get tired. I told the parents, feed your children before they come, because they'll be hungry when they leave, for sure. So, what's the thought on the coffee? Is that a yes or a no? A thumbs up? Okay, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that's not a problem. So, is that okay, Doug? Usually what happens then is I have it here when I arrive at 9, but we have to put it away before the performers arrive. So you can't just put it in a high place or something. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I might just leave it because the parents might actually want some too. Usually what I do is ask the parents, because it's $30 a week to do that. And I can usually the parents are happy to donate $30 to be part of